The Panamera Sport Turismo checks a lot of boxes that I like to see checked on a Porsche. It's powerful, it's nimble, it's crammed with technology and style, and most importantly, it's stupidly fast. But then they just kept adding things. I mean, this one's a wagon for some reason. Who asked for a Porsche wagon? Plus it's a plug-in hybrid like some kind of Prius Prime? Is this just a case of too much of a good thing? Well, let's head for the hills in this 2018 Porsche Panamera 4 Sport Turismo e-Hybrid to find out. Geez, even the name's too long. Now the Sport Turismo is basically the Panamera sedan with a little bit more trunk for your junk. You get about 5 more cubic feet of space thanks to the hatchback design, but that extra space is all high up top, which means that it's not very useful space for most people unless you carry a lot of bulky items like antique furniture or something like that. Now the Sport Turismo does come standard with Porsche's 3-chamber air suspension. It's got a little ride height adjustment, but it also adds auto leveling. So if you put something heavy back in that boot, well, you don't have to worry about your ride quality degrading as a result. However, the most important thing about this vehicle is that e-hybrid system. That's going to mate a 2.9-liter twin turbocharged V6 that makes 330 horsepower and 331 pound-feet of torque. And it's going to pair that with an e-motor that brings 300 pound-feet of its own to the party. The total system output is 462 horsepower and around 516 pound-feet of torque. That is not bad for a vehicle of this size and weight. That actually puts this in a nice performance sweet spot between the Panamera 4 and the much more expensive turbo models. Now speaking of that performance sweet spot, you're looking at a 0 to 60 time of 4.4 seconds. That's faster than I can say 2018 Porsche Panamera 4 e-Hybrid Sport Turismo. And you've got a top speed of somewhere between 150 and 170 miles per hour, depending on whether you believe this sticker on the dashboard or Porsche's spec sheet. Now, all of that power is going to go through an 8-speed PDK. That's the Porsche double coupling dual clutch transmission, and it's going to send that to all 4 wheels via an all-wheel drive system. It's mostly a rear bias for performance, but it can very quickly send power to the front, which makes it also good for inclement weather. Now every e-hybrid comes standard with the Porsche Sport Chrono setup. Now that basically adds this cool lap timer to the dashboard, but it also adds this knob to the steering wheel, which allows us to select between different drive modes. The first mode is going to be e-power, and that basically is full electric mode for up to the first 16 miles per 3-hour charge of its battery pack. And it's a full range electric mode. You can do the entire full speed range in it. The next mode is hybrid, which is basically comfort. It's going to allow the system to choose between using the gas and electricity as it sees fit, but there are also 2 sub-modes that allow you to preserve your electric charge for some later point, or also even generate electric charge using the gasoline engine. And then there are the 2 fun settings. There's Sport, which behaves like you expect a Porsche to. It basically firms up the suspension, lowers you down a little bit, tightens up the steering, and also makes the whole powertrain just a little bit more responsive. And then there's Sport Plus, which I've been in for most of the day. And that's actually going to take things a little bit further. It's going to really amp up the transmission shift program to give you the best possible performance when you're cornering and things like that. Now it's interesting how in the Sport mode, this vehicle just really shrinks around the cockpit. It's easy to forget. There's all of this car back there and so much more up front, the way this thing tucks into a corner. And part of that is due to our optional rear wheel steering system that's going to make this car feel much more nimble around bends. Now, I haven't driven this car without that setup, but my gut instinct tells me that on something this long, it's really working hard back there to make this car feel really nimble. So it's definitely worth the upgrade in my opinion. Now at lower speeds, when you're not driving like a maniac, the hybrid system can feel a little bit sluggish. And that's because it's kind of working between the gasoline and electric systems to give you the best possible fuel economy. For those first 16 electric miles, you're looking at around 44 miles per gallon equivalent, which ain't bad. And then beyond that, you step down to 22 miles per gallon combined, which is still decent for something that makes over 500 pound-feet of torque. There's one more mode I want to show you, and that's the Sport Response setting. Now, if you look at the drive mode selector, there's a button in the middle, and when you press that, It sets everything to its most responsive, most race-ready settings. Everything just gets a lot more amped up. It's like a shot of adrenaline to the car's performance and to the person sitting in the driver's seat. It's just awesome. It only lasts 20 seconds, which means that it's only really good for things like maybe that one part of the racetrack where you need a little bit more of an edge, or when you come up on your favorite set of twists on your favorite curvy road. And then it just goes back to being a regular, easy to drive car. Now overall, I feel like the hybrid system's performance gains place this car in a nice sweet spot between the standard Panamera 4 and the much more expensive turbo models. I mentioned that earlier. The fuel efficiency upgrades, well, that's just a nice bonus. The hybrid system makes more sense than you might think, given the performance and efficiency gains, but the wagon form factor, well, that's a little more tricky and personal. I mean, the standard Panamera is already pretty spacious for a Porsche, and if you needed more room than that, well, the Cayenne actually makes more sense for people in cargo. It's basically this same car as an SUV. But then you get a long look at that low-slung Sport Turismo roofline, and you consider the audacity of Porsche building a hybrid wagon in today's SUV-heavy climate, and then you just kind of got to appreciate this thing. And that's got me reaching for my wallet. It's just too bad there's nothing in it. Now, Porsche's e-hybrids come with these acid green brakes and highlights. Is that a good thing or not? I personally like them, but I want to know what you think. Let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, give us a subscription for even more cool videos from theroadshow.com.